Welcome to the Senate Transportation Committee. And we'll start, if you'd like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator Fenton, would you give us the honors?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we're going to go into executive session today for two bills. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Thank you. The first bill we're going to take up is Senate Bill 259.
So I'll move on to pass on the bill so we can talk about it.
Thank you, Senator Waters. So in converse, do you want to talk first?
Well, I mean, we need a second and I'll introduce
Okay.
the amendment.
Okay.
And then I'll introduce amendment 0182. If there's a second.
Okay. Do you want to speak to your amendment?
Is this mine? Oh, okay. Is it? It's Senator Chandler's. Well, Madam Chair, why don't you work this out with Senator Chandler or?
Well, I was unaware of any amendment,
Oh, okay.
which is contradictory to my
Oh,
policy of
boy.
amendments
Well, I
on the
didn't-
day of.
I didn't know about it until we saw it today. So, yeah, I'll tell you what it is that essentially based on our hearing and knowing that the DOT was in the process and even I think this week having hearings about what to do, the proposals down there. So what this amendment says is that, yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, address the chronic crashes and then use the yeah, you know, obviously the chronic crashes, but then you'll see on lines 6 and 7, it basically says, consistent with the recommendations of the 20 World 1 plan, and I think basically what it recognizes is that whatever the results of that study are that are being done right now, the options, whatever alternative they come up with, this says use that, more or less. So it backs off basically the original bill by saying, you know, 10-year plan ought to do this, and the DOT is now having hearings this week about what alternative they're going to have. So, but whatever. I mean, I'm not arguing for it, because that's what it does.
Well, I'll speak to this if that's all right. So I did speak with Senator Chandler this morning and told her that, because I have been working very closely with her because I think it's an important issue. And I told her I was going to make the motion of re-refer.
All right.
And she was fine with that.
Okay.
So I have a surprise amendment. And everyone who knows me, I like to vet everything. I don't really like amendments when we have to vote. That being said, the reason for re-refer is I have all these notes that I've gone over with the Department of Transportation and Senator Chandler. And, you know, to have it in the record, I'll just read a little bit of it. But with regard to Senate Bill 259, there were notes on the meeting they had with emergency service providers in the area about the project. And as they discussed that and established, the project is in the 10-year plan and it addresses the safety concerns of the 101 Milford bypass. But because it's being actively developed and there are ongoing meetings, there was one even yesterday, the feeling is that we should let due process continue, let the public hearings continue. And the DOT has assured us that they're going to address this problem and they are meeting with all the stakeholders. So I think by re-referring it, that gives them the opportunity to keep their word on doing so. And then we can revisit it if that should not happen. So my motion would be re-refer.
I'll second. I noticed, Madam Chair, that
I'm sorry, I just want to interject. So we already have a motion because Senator
I'll
Waters.
withdraw my motion.
Okay,
And I will
Senator,
just-
I'm due.
I will
Withdraw
just tell you,
second. Okay,
I
great.
just happened to notice, Madam Chair, that this amendment that I just happened to find in my folder is dated on January 30th. So,
Oh.
going back when I hadn't forgotten about it, and I thought somehow it was new, but it's not. So
Oh, okay.
Refer is the way to
Yeah,
go.
well, 'cause I thought we were all set. You kind of threw
It's
me
been a
on that
long
one.
day.
Yeah, it has.
It's been a
Okay.
long day.
Okay, so,
Refer.
could we have a vote on the motion of re-refer?
So moved.
Second.
I mean, I'm
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Move consent?
Second.
Okay. Senator Waters, would you like to take it out?
Fine.
Okay. Thank you. Now we will move on to Senate Bill 52. Do I have a motion?
Ought to pass.
This motion is to have conversation. So I have an amendment. I would like to bring in amendment. Where's my notes? Oh, here we are. Can I have that paper, please? Sure. Oh, thank you. The amendment is 0722. And
Second.
okay, and I'd just like to speak to my amendment. So a little bit about this. This has been going on a couple of months, and really wanted to get to yes. We do need to do something about the tourism and the EV chargers. But the most important thing was we needed a solution that wouldn't raise the rate for the ratepayer. And we don't want to have unintended consequences, and we don't want to have the cart before the horse. When we do things, we want to do it right. And I want to speak a little bit further about it. I wrote this because it's been such an important issue to all of us. New Hampshire and the region are experiencing some of the highest electric rates in recent memory, if not the highest. And I cannot in good conscience put additional burdens on the ratepayers at a time like this. All I've heard from constituents are how worried they are about their high electric rates. Making it easier for EV infrastructure to get built will mean more of it will, and it will be paid by the ratepayer until we can figure out a better solution. That is why the amendment proposes a commission to look at the revenue funding streams. And I know that a study had touched on some of these areas a few years back, but I think we can all agree that the landscape of EVs has dramatically shifted since then. And this study in particular, unlike the previous study, looks exclusively at how to find these investments without raising the electric rates. And as you will note, the amendment preserves the definition changes in Section 1 of the bill and most in Section 2 of the bill, with the remainder of the bill for the study committee. I have the committee report date of 11/24 to give it time to do a thorough review of the topics laid out. But I would be open to having it report sooner or potentially issuing an interim report this November. I think this presents a reasonable solution that the state is both serious about building out EV infrastructure and not increasing electricity costs even more. Does anyone of the members of the committee would like to comment?
No. Thank you, Madam Chair, for, your attention to this. And I just had a couple of questions. There had been some thought about Section 4 since that docket had already been completed. That, just to clean up statute to take Section 4 out, but we can leave it in. It's just that already was done. So that was one of the reasons that had been struck from other proposals. But I just thought I'd mention that. It doesn't make any difference if it stays in statute, but that study was done by the PUC. And then just the kind of more general question is that when we completed the EV Infrastructure Commission 3 years ago now, one of the recommendations that we put into statute was that we're handing off EV matters and recommendation to the Transportation Council, which that same year, Steve Smith and I set that up in legislation. And so, there is some thought that this might be a little duplicative. And these duties could be assigned to the Transportation Council because that's kind of their charge is to deal with this. And I know Jim Jalbert, the chair, is very interested in these things. So, I mean, I think we can pass this fine, but I just, I'm not, whether the House is going to set another commission is gonna be another question, but, if it gets over to the House and there's some heartburn about another commission, maybe it could at that point go to saying, well, actually, this is the job of the Transportation Council. So,
I agree with that.
we'll see,
It's just, I was trying to
see.
keep legislative control over the situation. And I was, wanting the stakeholders, although the Transportation Council is open to the public, I was hoping the stakeholders would be able to sit around the table, and figure this out. So, if this should not pass the House, I would be open to that. That's a good suggestion, Senator Waters.
the committee, not a commission, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
So, good.
So I make a motion, ought to pass as amended?
I think we have to vote on the amendment first.
Oh, the amendment. I'll, make a motion to accept the amendment.
Okay, so moved, seconded, okay.
Now I will, make a motion, ought to pass.
We
as
gotta vote on
I was gonna say, we gotta vote on the
yeah.
amendment first.
Aye.
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 Now I make a motion.
Go for it.
Yeah,
It's been a long day.
time's a charm. Ought to pass as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent?
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'll take this one out.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for your work.
That concludes the executive session for transportation on March 7th. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Denise.
Good job.
Thanks, buddy.